It's Sunday. Here at Krypto Labs. We are doing another live stream, and today we are very happy to bring on this guy, Rich Sanders from Cipherblade. Hello, Rich. How we doing?
Great, thanks for having me.
Oh, cool. So one of the things that we try to do here is teach everything about what goes about in the crypto space, and security is a huge topic in the industry concerning wallet breaks. You have infrastructure breaks and exchange. If you go back in the days, there were a lot of breaches on the exchanges. I usually start by asking the people that I bring on, like, hey Richard, how did you came about starting Cipherblade? What was the need for that?
It became really apparent around 2017 that there was no company that was offering investigations within this line of work as a service. So by that point in the history of the industry, chain analysis had been born. So there was a company out there that was building a database with attributed wallets that they and law enforcement utilize in investigations. But imagine if you're somebody that gets scammed or hacked and you want to hire the equivalent of a private investigative agency. There wasn't anything available at the time that was a legitimate non-scam company. That's how Cipherblade began.
Nice. I'm still trying to figure out this echo thing. Let's see if I can do like this. Maybe we just remove the echo because yeah, there we go. So to catch on from there. What year did you said you started Cipherblade?
2017, which I'm sure you remember is a very interesting year considering what happened.
Very interesting. So people, they are like thinking of breaches like hacks, hacking, and I think most people, they're like thinking of this big computer screens with numbers running down and stuff, but in the reality, Rich, how do you look at breaches and hacks? How do they come about?
I cannot tell you a single circumstance, at least when it comes to the hack of a cryptocurrency user. Exchange hacks can be a little bit different, although this also applies to a lot of exchange hacks. Tend to be not very sophisticated, and they tend to be just a matter of a failure to follow instructions. For example, I'm sure a lot of chat knows about hardware wallets and might have them themselves, a Trezor, for example, or a Ledger. What's included with those? This little instruction booklet that says write this down, and chat, don't get too excited. It's not a real seed phrase. But what does it tell you to do? It tells you to write it down, not to take a picture of it, not to put it on Google Drive. It tells you to write it down. And if you follow that fundamental instruction, no remote-based attacker can steal your cryptocurrency. And that's the same thing. Kind of the tragedy of that is that if you look back to 2017, the same things are happening nowadays. Back in 2017, SIM swaps were a huge issue, particularly in the United States. Then that bear market collapsed. And then what do I hear about in 2021? Well, more people getting SIM swapped. By that point especially, there was a lot of knowledge that you should use Google Authenticator. If you're not, you would be considered to be a reckless novice. That generally will also apply, by the way.
I'm sorry. Trying to debug. I'm just trying to debug the double echo here, and it completely failed on me.
No worries. If we do need to reschedule this, that's an option too if you have next Sunday open.
Yeah, I will give it the last try here. Hold on. There we go.
There we go.
Maybe we
Maybe
got it
we
up
got it up
running
running
again.
again.
I just want to make sure I give you as much time as I can, but I will have to stop it at 30 because
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
This is
Is
amazing.
amazing.
Every
Every
time we
time
do
we
this,
do this,
last time
last
and the
time
day
and the day
before,
before,
no
no
issues
issues
at
at
all,
all,
and
and
then
then
all of a
all
sudden
of a sudden
crash on us.
crash on us.
maybe there's some type of interesting hack going on where they don't want the audience to get educated. Particular. I love my job. There is no job out there that is 100% perfect and doesn't have something that could possibly be somewhat mundane or something of the sort. But it is fun to investigate this type of stuff. It is fun to find these connections because these types of cases involve blockchain analysis, the use of open source intelligence. And what's probably the most fun about these things is that we do a lot of things to help really good people. And that could be anything from, we might work anything where we could be advising law enforcement on transaction analysis related to terror financing that directly benefits public safety. Frankly, it could be the opposite end from that kind of perception, which is we're working a divorce case and really what we provide is the ability for fairness, right? If we don't get involved in these cases, what ends up happening is I'm going to sound a little sexist here. It's always guys, and hopefully Chad can prove me wrong on this one day. But guys that think they can hide all their Bitcoin from their wives or soon-to-be ex-wives, and think they're smart and just withdraw it off Coinbase into a personal wallet. So it is situations like that too, where it is, I want to say, satisfying to help people out to prevent those types of injustices.
And then when you come to court, it's like, oh man, I had a boating accident with my ledger again.
I've had defendants try that, and then I've
You
had
have?
them get incarcerated. Yeah, I mean, like
Oh,
that's what. Yeah, so as a testifying expert, that is really what we're doing.
cool.
It's not just blockchain analysis, but we provide testimony in courts because judges otherwise aren't going to understand. And that boating accident thing, I can't
Mhm.
tell you how many ex-husbands thought they were cute because they read about that idea on Twitter or Reddit and they actually tried it. Um, I could tell you from my experience, if they bring an expert into the case and
Mhm.
the expert explains to the judge why it's BS, it's not going to work. So if they want to try that, by all means, go for it. But they're just going to end up incarcerated.
So okay. So guys in the chat and out there on YouTube, if you ever
Get a prenup.
consider
Cryptocurrency is not a replacement for your prenup. That's the moral of the story.
or just don't
Because all your
divorce.
ex has to do is hire me, and you're going to have a real bad time.
Or just don't divorce. Be good to your wife. Don't cheat.
That too. I mean, that's always an option. Or just don't get married in the first place.
Yeah,
That's fine too.
that's also true. Oh my god!
Yeah.
But you witness expert. Yeah, that's a cool. That's actually a cool topic. So back in 2017, how credible was it to be an expert witness in the blockchain space, coming to a serious court? Maybe you have a lawyer there and people with financial background, and yada yada. Was it difficult?
There has been a lot of evolution in the expert space in this particular niche, more so I would say in the last couple of years. I think that generally there's just more of an understanding of we need to get experts involved in these issues. As opposed to 2017, generally courts were just more likely to believe who the most knowledgeable person in the room was. And if that most knowledgeable person in the room is somebody saying, I lost all of my Coinbase when I withdrew it from, or all of my Bitcoin when I withdrew it from Coinbase, the judge would believe that. Nowadays, it's a little bit more likely that if like a judge doesn't catch that, usually what happens before that nowadays, I have seen attorneys at least know that they
Mm-hmm.
should ask questions. They don't
Mm.
quite know all of the time that experts like us exist, but it's at least progressed as far as like the general understanding that there are experts out there that have these capabilities. So at least it's some progress.
Mm-hmm. And when you come to court, do you ever get like a lawyer calling you and ask, for example, what questions should I ask, or what do the let's say no coiners in the court system talk about?
Well, the thing is that they generally don't even know what to ask for. And I think
Mm,
what you're talking about in the US legal system, they would call that discovery, which is you're getting these different documents and records that are relevant to a case. So, like for a divorce case, for example, what would be relevant discovery would be in the hypothetical I gave you earlier, the
mm,
Coinbase exchange records, the records for the self custodial wallets. So then my role as an expert, and at that point, I'm more of a consulting expert. I could in the future become a testifying expert if it goes to trial. But at that point, I'm probably a consulting expert and I help
mm,
the attorneys make a list of here are the things that need to produce. Some of this can be subpoenaed, and then the other thing you have to educate them on is that some of this can't be subpoenaed. You can't subpoena Bitcoin. It doesn't
mm,
work that way, and I have to explain that on a near weekly basis. But then I also have to explain that in some cases, especially for self-custodial wallets,
mm,
can't be subpoenaed, has to be produced by them. And then it's what you described, the whole boating accident thing, and then I have to explain the likelihood of that and how these credentials work and it gets a little more hairy from there. But the point is that at that point, a court at least understands the type of records that should be produced at all.
mm. So okay, we had some fun with the boating accident, but okay, if you go out from the court and you actually, and this is perhaps, oh, we can talk a lot about it, but so if let's say you had an accident with your wallet, money got gone, the tokens got gone, and yeah, and then you normally would go to Google and then Google, please help me recover my funds. And from my experience, uh, Cipherblade website doesn't pop up on the top of there. You get this guy that, oh, if you just pay me $10,000 up front, we for sure gonna make a good story here. And uh, they're basically scammers out there. Is that do you have the same let's say opinion about the situation out there?
I have the same opinion, but even more intense. I will
Mm-hmm.
tell you and the audience straight up if the company is not Chainalysis, a
Mm-hmm.
Chainalysis certified investigative partner, which would include us, or a reputable company like
Mm-hmm.
Elliptic or Crystal, they are either A, they're outright recovery scammers. So, and this
Mm-hmm.
is very common with the same people that scam in the first place, by the way. Um, this existed, this was a thing way before cryptocurrency, by the way, with like Nigeria 419 scams. They
Yeah,
would
yeah.
often follow up being able to claim to recover the money. So, a
Mm,
lot of the types of ads that you're seeing, especially if they're posted on like Quora, Yahoo Answers, that kind of thing, are those types of scams. But then you have this whole other category, which are these
mm,
companies that effectively are trying to pretend to be us, and in some cases me.
mm,
And I wish I was making that up, but that is quite factually what it is. A license for Chainalysis Reactor is not cheap. I'm not going to say on this podcast what it could cost, but
mm,
it's not cheap. And the more important thing is that with these companies like Chainalysis, they're not just giving licenses to John Doe the enthusiast. You either have to be a company that's already been reputable within the space and vet it and working with government, or you're just
mm,
not going to get access. So these
mm,
companies, at best, if they're not outright scammers, they're misrepresenting or overrepresenting their abilities. Now, my company does charge up front for this type of service. We also operate on a partial contingency model. We're not cheap, but that
mm,
doesn't help the fact that there's all these companies out there that are outright scammers. We decline the majority of requests for help we get because we are too busy.
mm.
Probably the best thing I could have answered that with up at the front is don't come to us getting hacked. Don't get hacked in the first place. I
Yeah.
don't want anyone's money to hire me for a hack case if that could be avoided. We are already way too busy. So spend the 30 seconds to follow instructions and don't need to spend anything on us would be my advice.
Cold storage, tracer,
All you need
Cipherblade,
right here.
all you need, all you need. We're not going into the discussion of which one is the best, but we could, by general, say that if you have one of those, if it's SafePal, if it's Ledger, if it's Tracer, all of them do the same thing, and they reduce the exposure by like 99, I don't know, like that percent.
There's always going to be exceptions and technicalities and
Mm,
gotchas on everything.
mm,
But I have not once come across a situation where somebody somehow magically got access to somebody's ledger or treasure. It is because a seed phrase was compromised,
mm, mm,
plain and simple. Those
mm,
devices work as intended. It is user error. And that user error, from 100% of my experience, is because they're not following instructions. And I really hope that's a big takeaway for chat because I often hear about these cryptocurrency hacks, and when people discuss them from people that aren't working them on a daily basis, like they're these
Mm.
highly sophisticated things. Like there's this person in a basement with lines of code flashing across a screen and somehow stealing this person's cryptocurrency, and that's just
Mm.
not how it works.
Mm-mm. So, because what you are saying, we might just put a parallel to. So it's not only, let's say, the retail user that makes those mistakes. You know that they uh, give away seed phrases or get, because when, I don't know if you can talk in a general, when you look into, because I believe you have seen into some exchange hacks and stuff like that. Could you say something like what is the attack vector from for the hacker point of view?
Absolutely. I will say with exchanges, there's a deviation from consumers insofar as with consumers, I've not once come across a situation where I looked at it and said, wow, that's sophisticated. You have
Mm,
a relatively more drawn out and I would say complicated attacks, such as the one Binance faced years ago
mm,
involving API keys.
mm,
I would say that that's more obviously on the complex side. I'm not going to name and shame the particular exchanges, but I will say there are more than a few exchanges, and this is true as of the past 3 years. So you could probably narrow it down there, where it
mm,
was as simple as what I described as far as seed phrase management goes. So it really is one or the other, and generally it's the easier run.
mm. Have you heard some good stories from like back in the old days when we talked about hacks? Then it's more like mismanagement. So, that's what I heard. So like you have MacGox, okay, they fucked up. You have Coin Shifter, they fucked up. You have
A lot of them, it's mismanagement, and there's a
mm,
direct connection or a direct correlation, I would say,
mm,
between mismanagement insofar as insolvency and
mm,
mismanagement insofar as cybersecurity. And that is to say, if a company is not spending enough on one, they're probably not spending enough on the other. And I'm not going to say one particular exchange, except for that they start with a K and rhyme with KuCoin. That might apply to. If you have enough money to spend on car giveaways, maybe if you spent a little bit more on your cybersecurity, you could have prevented that. I mean, I'm not trying to be the person that has all the answers here, but this is pretty
mm.
common sense stuff.
It is. Good example. Anyway, so so when, let's say, by some this guy, they have 30 million on a wallet, it got all over the place, something bad happened, and by somehow you decide to take on the case. um, where do you start? How do you start like a case like this, like, yeah.
So almost always, well, not almost always, whenever
Mm,
somebody comes to us at all, whether or not they become our client, they'll
mm,
contact us most of the time through email. They'll say, "Here, hey, here's the situation, and what we need out of the gate, we need the transaction data." There's no
mm,
point in emailing my company and saying, "Hey, I lost $7 million," and providing me no transaction information. I can't tell you whether or not your case is going to be worth us taking for you or not at that point. So we get the transaction data, and what we do is a preliminary analysis. We take a look
mm,
at the blockchain. We see roughly how many hours this might take to fix. Where are the funds currently going if they have moved? Usually the funds have already moved, but sometimes that's not the case. There's
mm,
quite a few different factors, and there's some possibility for interception of assets, and some exchanges are more cooperative than others. And based upon that, we make a decision as to whether or not we're going to take the case at all. And most of the time, because we've been so busy lately, that answer is
mm,
no. If that answer is yes, then we'll provide an estimate. Once we're retained, what we'll do from there, the core deliverable that we provide is a full-fledged report. And the way that somebody in the FBI once described this, I really liked, is that we come to them with basically these cases on a silver platter that just says, please open me, I've done all the work, except for the things that we legally can't do because we're law enforcement. And they
yeah.
love that, and it makes them look good. So that's basically the main value proposition that we deliver as a result of that.
Makes them look good. I think
Yeah, I mean, it does because then they get to go to a prosecutor and say, "We have had
mhm,
this case handed to us that's
mhm,
worth, $6, $7 million, and all we got to do is send out these subpoenas," and they love that.
mm, 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 mm. Well, so is it possible, back in the days there was a lot of like sim swapping? It's not so popular here in Europe, but have you actually have sim swapping cases here in Europe that you know of? Because I think that was very
I'm
popular.
sure there are some. I just can't recall if I've ever investigated a SIM swapping case in Europe. I know that there
Mm,
were quite a few happening in Canada,
mm,
but not Europe.
mm. So,
I
so,
have
so
no doubt that some happened, especially like I could see that in the UK in particular.
mm. So for those who don't know what a SIM swapping scam is, that if you, for example, have actually read the instructions and you've been a very good boy. You have put on 2FA, you have done everything, yeah, according to plan, and then all of a sudden your phone goes out of service and someone is by switching by ordering a new SIM card, um, they can actually take over your account because you can recover accounts to your mobile device or by using a SIM card, basically.
But here's the thing with that, and I just put a
Mm,
link in the chat that I hope that you could relay to chat because I co-authored that guide um, over 3 years ago at this point, and I
mm,
don't even need to read the guide again to tell you everything that is in that guide still applies. There is no reason why the loss of somebody's phone number through a SIM swap should result in cryptocurrency theft at all, for the simple reason that the setup instructions specifically say, don't put online, write this down. You're warned in the software, you're warned on the paper, even if it's not a hardware wallet. When you set up
mm,
most cryptocurrency wallets these days, they're based upon seed phrases and they tell you to write it down. Um, Almost all accounts that are relevant to cryptocurrency these days, in fact, I can't think of one this would not apply to,
mm,
support TOTP2FA. That is to say Google Authenticator or equivalent.
mm.
The other mistake, and the thing is, the article I linked to covers this too, people make is they don't secure their email accounts. Your email account should be at least as secured as your exchange accounts.
Yeah,
That is to say, use TOTP. So if people do that, a SIM swap doesn't result in anything except for the loss of a phone number for a couple hours, maybe. That's it.
yeah,
It's an
yeah.
inconvenience.
Yeah, and that's a good thing that you said there, that because many people think, oh, I got 10 levels of security on my exchange, but if your email has like the password 123 password, and your email has been breached, you're actually not out of the deep water, because then uh, you are reachable and they can guess your password. But
That describes a very average consumer hack, by the way. If you were to ask
mm,
me, what is the typical cryptocurrency user's hack situation sound like? That's a
mm.
great description right there.
Uh-huh. Thanks. Anyway, we got a little bit rough start here, and we wasted a lot of time. And I know you are a very busy guy, Rich. But do you have time for one question in the chat before we let you
Sure.
go? Mm.
Yeah, sure.
So, uh, um, um, what is your thoughts around the FTX SFB situation from a crypto investigator point of view?
I know that we're going to go a little over time. I could go till about 5 after because I'll give a longer answer on this that answers that, and I hope is really insightful. I think that is everything else generally that has happened this year.
Mm,
Voyager, Celsius, BlockFi, as a consequence of the same thing that we've been dealing with in 2017. And the fact that we just got off the SIM swapping conversation is a
mm,
great example of that because fundamentally, the cybersecurity issues that we just talked about, it is no different in 2022.
mm,
2017, we had all these ICOs that went belly up because there was no transparency, right? And think of all the lawsuits and the SEC enforcement actions. And then
yeah.
what else did we have? We had BitConnect. And if chat
Mm.
doesn't remember what BitConnect was, it was that Ponzi that
BitConnect.
exactly, exactly, which we all make fun of and we all
Mm,
made fun of for years. And then what
mm,
happened? We have these things like Celsius and Voyager and BlockFi getting promoted by these people like Pomp and
mm,
Mark Cuban and all
mm,
of these people that make a living off of selling affiliate links, saying,
mm,
"Hey, trust us. This is different. This is not like BitConnect. This is people that are public facing, like Mashinsky with Celsius. That was his whole shtick. Oh, look at me. I'm a public face. You can trust me." And then sure enough, what happened? They're YOLOing customer funds into DeFi. That's
yeah.
worse than what happened with BitConnect. BitConnect, at least the scammers were anonymous. And how does that apply to SAM and FTX? It's the same thing. Look at me. I'm a public face. You can trust me. And then what do we see on Twitter? I'm sorry I fucked up. That's what we get 5 years later after BitConnect? Come on, guys. Let's fix this industry. I'm
Try
not
to.
like that guy.
Mm-mm,
I'm not the Ponzi guy. Look at me, I'm a public face. Sorry guys,
mm,
I fucked up. That's
mm,
I mean, this industry is like watching paint dry sometimes.
mm. We, but I think it's fucks up like in the 70s, the 1970, 2017, and uh, BitConnect, and it sounds very bad, but it's a good for the industry, I think, because you can wash out bad actors, and for the future, I think we're gonna have more guys like you, and there are gonna be more people caught, um, and busted and jailed, and actually doing illegal stuff on blockchain is going to have severe consequences for people, I believe, in the future.
I hope there continues to be a growth. I hope that my company has some competitors soon because this space does need cleaned up. This tech is awesome, and it is really such a shame that the
Mm.
reputation of this industry is, oh, it's used to pay for, child exploitation material, and it's used for scams and hacks. And this tech has so much potential. So I do hope you're right.
I agree. Okay, Rich. With that, we have to sum it up. Rich, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope we can have a chat further down the road. Let's say in a year or something like that, and then we will have the tech working properly for
Definitely.
and more time. And
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. This was fun.
yeah, yeah, it's so cool having a view from let's see, investigator point of view. We haven't had many of those here. So, and I hope that next year we can put competitors, Cipherblade and maybe a couple other companies against each other, and we can have some fun and debate. It's really good to see if they have been better or
I
not.
wouldn't even see them as competitors. I would see them as allies. This industry needs it.
Ah, yeah, that's actually good said. That's very good. Thank you so much, Rich. And to the people out there in the chat, thank you so much for joining in. And I'm so sorry for the technical and echo in the beginning. We sorted out the echo. That's a good thing, but we had a browser crash. But that's life in the computer world. We are still learning.
Thank you, chat.
Okay, take care, guys. Here comes the outro. Have a nice
Take care.
Sunday.